In New Delhi, Russia, that holds significant part of the resource-rich Arctic region, has offered India's access to the northern sea route that connects Europe with the Pacific Rim, including the additional supplies of the natural gas and the joint development of gas fields to meet New Delhi's growing energy needs. Russian President Vladimir Putin made this announcement here on Friday in India in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi while addressing a business summit. The Prime Minister and I discussed this earlier today. We welcome our Indian partners to join the work in the Arctic as well. This is a very promising long-term and very serious project that looks decades ahead, one with good investments and good return. As the climate continues to change in some places, this is good, and elsewhere perhaps not so good. The Northern Sea route offers growing opportunities, Putin said in his address. We are building a nuclear-powered fleet, 8 nuclear-powered ships, which will be steadily put into operation. This work is in progress. This will ensure reliable LNG supplies to Indian and the world market. So this could be a very interesting joint work, said Putin. There are concrete references to Indo-Russian partnership in the Arctic region in the joint statement issued after the annual summit on Friday. The two governments also expressed support to companies from both the sides for development of cooperations and exploring opportunities for joint development of oil fields in Russian territory, including on the Arctic Shelf, and projects on the shelf of the Pekora and Okhotsk seas. Putin and Modi also discussed a 2017 joint study on possible gas supply routes from Russia to India, said some source to Economic Times. The Arctic contains a wealth of petroleum and mineral resources. Currently, the region produces about one-tenth of the world's oil and quarter of its natural gases. The Russian Arctic is sourced for about 80% of this oil and virtually all of the natural gases. The most developed sector of the region, the Russian Arctic, also holds the abundant deposit of nickel, copper, coal, gold, uranium, tungsten, and diamonds. Putin assured, our country has been and will be reliable energy suppliers for the Indian economy. He noted the joint projects in the field of supplies of LNG are on the strategic importance. So what do you think of Moscow offers in New Delhi access to oil and gas rich Northern Sea route, which India cannot say no for it? Even after the US warning on the S-400 purchases, India is going to rely and do business with oil with Russia. US President Donald Trump on Monday slammed India for imposing tremendous high tariff on American products and said that the New Delhi wanted to have a trade deal with us, with the US primarily to keep him happy. Alleged high Indian tariffs for the second time in a few days came during his White House news conference where he announced a new trade deal with the neighboring Mexico and Canada. As he announced the key elements of the US-Mexico and Canada agreement are the NAFTA or the USMCA, Trump listed out at the trade deals that are under negotiations, including with Japan, European Union, China, and India. Trump described India as a tariff king, as he retaliated his allegations that the New Delhi has a high tariff rate on various American products. He alleged that India puts tremendously high tariffs on American products and racked up the issue of the Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Well, India charges us tremendous tariffs when we send Harley-Davidsons, motorcycles, other things to India. They charge very, very high tariffs. And I've spoken to Prime Minister Modi, and he's going to reduce them very substantially. Nobody ever spoke to these people. He said, nobody ever spoke to me. In other words, we've had leaders here. I'm not, trying to be overly dramatic. We've had presidents of the United States and trade representatives that they never spoke to India. Brazil's another one. That's a beauty. They charge us whatever they want.
Nothing that the tariff on the motorcycle was 100%, the president said it was like a barrier. India has already reduced it substantially, but it is still too high, Trump said, adding that who is going to buy it as it costs so much. He also warned against imposing similar tariff on imports of Indian products. The Trump said that India wanted to have a trade deal with the US and negotiations are being carried out by the US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. When US officials asked the Indians why they want to have a trade deal with America, Indian officials told them that they want to keep the US president happy. Trump told to reporters, "India, which is the tariff king, they call us and they said, we want to start negotiations immediately," said Trump. Thereafter, he referred to a conversation that Lighthizer had with Indian officials.
So you send a motorcycle into India, there's a 100% tariff. Now that's so high that it's like a barrier. In other words, who's going to buy it? Costs you so much. Now they've already reduced that substantially, but it's still too high. With Prime Minister Modi is great, and they're going to start doing a lot. They've called us to make a deal. We didn't even call them. They called us to make a deal, which is like shocking to people.
On Saturday, Trump said that India wants to have a trade deal with US because it does not want him to impose tariff on their products. Trump's remarks came after the days that since the US Trade Representative Mark Linscott returned from India, where he had detailed discussions with the senior Indian officials on bilateral trade and a possible trade deal between the two countries. So what do you think of India making Trump so happy by having immediate negotiations on trade deals? Also, Trump said that they never had or never will have to buy any Indian products, but they will impose import tariff on Indian products in US. In New Delhi, 2 weeks after India significantly upgraded its defense ties with the United States through Kamkasa, the Communication Capability and Security Agreement, the Modi government has cleared the way for one of the biggest purchases from Russia worth of $2.2 billion of frigate deals. The agreement, which will allow India to procure from Russia 4 new warships for the Navy, will be signed during a summit between President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister of India Mr. Narendra Modi in the capital in October. The efforts are on the add the finishing touches to contours of the deal. The long-pending deals to procure Project 11356 of the Advanced Salvo-class frigates will involve building 2 of the ships at the Goa shipyard, while the rest will be bought directly from Russia's Yantar shipyard. The sources have told Economic Times that the clearance procedures before the signing is in the final stage and that India could make payments to the rupee-ruble route. As reported by the Economic Times, the financial sanction by the US has complicated purchases of the weapons from Moscow, as Indian banks are unable to transfer money to the defense companies in Russia. An alternative arrangement to pay in Indian rupee instead of standard US dollars is being worked out to the party deals with the matter. The deal is being processed as a 2+2 scheme where the technology will be transferred to the Goa shipyard to construct 2 of the frigates from scratch. The other 2 will be delivered faster, possibly within 2 years. As the result, as the hulls of the ship have already been fabricated for the Russian Navy, ordered that got stalled following for the Ukraine crisis. The ship has been designed to work with the Ukraine-made gas turbines. While there were initial discussions to involve the Indian private sector to build 2 of the ships domestically, the government took a decision to nominate the state-owned Goa shipyard as it had spare capacity at hand. The Indian-made warships are expected to cost 30 to 50% more than the direct Russian import due to the cost of building infrastructure and transfer of technology. India and Russia had signed an intergovernmental agreement to proceed with the deal in October 2016, but the price negotiations and technical consultations, which also involved the Indian shipyard, delayed the final clearance.
which could be one of the big takeaways from Modi to Putin summit that is scheduled to take place in Delhi on October 5, 2018. India already operates 6 of the Talwar class frigates, but these 4 to be ordered will be more advanced versions. The battleships are to be fitted with BrahMos missile system and will have significant changes from the older ships, as the Navy will have several Indian-made equipment on board, including the sensors and the communications. They will add to India's muscles in the Indian Ocean region to counter China and Pakistan. Among the immediate priorities for the Navy are the minesweepers and the multi-role helicopters that can be deployed on the warships. So what do you think of India clears $2.2 billion of frigate deals with Russia, while US is not happy with having Russian-made and Russian defense equipment to be bought to India? Suresh Prabhu, the Commerce and Industry Minister of India, led the Indian delegation at St. Petersburg International Economic Forum on May 25th and 24th to initiate an economic summit as follow-up of the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India to Sochi for an informal summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two countries also explored the possibility of joint ventures which should participate in tender in third countries. The minister during his engagement invited the various ministers, governors and CEOs to bring a delegation of top 100 CEOs to visit India for a summit and the meeting, with government officials and Indian CEOs where sector-specific industry would meet each other to discuss, build contacts to create sustained engagements. As India and Russia are getting so much closer and getting into economic trades and bilateral ties, US is getting eager and Trump is a little bit afraid or shocked to see India and Russia getting closer than US in relationship on defense and economy. The minister met 5 Russian ministers and several top business leaders representing railways, communication and media, fertilizers and startups. During the various meetings, the both sides appreciated and noted the fact that India-Russia trade has increased considerably, but was also still less the potential. The thrust of the conversation was creating and executing a plan for increased India-Russian trade economic cooperation. Towards this end, logistics, the infrastructures, the knowledge and based economics, diamonds and golds were highlighted as the important focus areas. In the infrastructure sector, the status of joint study with Russian railways and the high-speed railway line between Nagpur and Secunderabad was discussed. The Indian minister also highlighted the need to set up joint ventures which should participate in tender in third countries. The knowledge-based sectors like paramedicals, innovative industries, digital economies were discussed as the target areas of joint cooperations, with Russian Deputy Prime Minister and Indian ministers highlighting the need for the cooperation and creating a win-win plan in the areas of gold, diamond, timber, and other natural resources. The visit also discussed the creation of mechanisms to find the complementaries and remove barriers between the economies of the two countries. The Commerce and the Industry Minister of India and the Minister of Economic Development discussed the articulations of the Joint Action Plan on increased Russian economic cooperation and to submit the findings of report before the annual summit between the Prime Minister of India and the Russian President later this year. The establishment of a strategic economic dialogue between the Niti Aayog on the Indian side and the Ministry of Economic Development on the Russian side, where experts from both sides would meet and discuss the economic issues, which would have its first meeting later this year, was discussed. Expediting the EIUE, the India FTA negotiations was also underlined. The Indian Commerce and the Industry Minister and the Russian Minister of Transport agreed that the operations, the International North-South Transport Corridor, would propel trade between the two countries to new height by providing a faster, more viable trade route. Therefore, should be a priority for the both. So what do you think of India and Russia's close economic ties and mega economic summit, which will trigger US ties with India to anvil relations or reliable relations? Post your comments below. And if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and follow us on social networks and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching. This is WEC Daily. Think big, think different. Bye.